For those of you who don't know me, my name is Andrew Mayer. I'm the Assistant Director for Leadership Development in the Center for Student Engagement, Leadership, and Orientation, also known as CELO. I am the one who you've been getting wonderful emails from throughout the last month and a half about your recognition. I want to thank you all for coming out on a Saturday. I very much would love to be doing other things today with my Saturday, so I understand being here and the challenge that may be with your schedules, but we're very appreciative of you making time to participate. The diversity in program inclusion experience has been a part of recognition for the past couple of years. This is the first year we are doing it in this format. We've already done 2 sessions today and we've received extremely positive feedback. And I'm really excited to announce our speaker, Carrie Zimmerman. She has been here with the University of New Haven, involved in some of our programming efforts over the past 5 years. How many of you if you were an undergrad student, how many of you participated in the SOAR program, orientation program? Okay. How many of you remember Reader's Theater when the orientation leaders were up on stage in the line doing the presentation? A couple folks. Carrie is actually the person who developed and created Reader's Theater. So she comes every year and does a phenomenal job training our staff to do that presentation, and we think it's one of the best parts of our SOAR program. We hear that every year. So we were looking for a different way to do this particular program this year. We couldn't think of anyone better than Carrie, and we hope that you will get a lot out of this experience. So thank you all again for coming out. I'm just going to pass it off to Carrie.
Thanks. Hey, it's 2:40 on a Saturday afternoon. Is my mic on? Can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. It's 2:40 on a Saturday afternoon. Raise your hand if you would rather be somewhere else. Thank you. I appreciate the honesty. You see my hand is also in the air. It's not because I don't want to be here with you. I would rather not be here because I wish we didn't have to have this conversation. I wish that we lived in a world where we didn't have to talk about the things that we're going to talk about today. You can probably tell from my accent and the words that come out of my mouth, I'm not from here. I am from North Carolina. I lived in Texas a long time. I now live in Washington, D.C. And what you also may be thinking is, what does this white woman from the South have anything to say about being diverse, being inclusive? And really, it's not about what I have to say, it's about what you have to say to each other. So that's why when we kind of ask you to reluctantly get out of your back row seats and crawl a little bit further toward the front, is because part of this presentation is going to be you all talking to each other. It's going to be about you having the conversation with the people in this room. It is the 3rd session that we've done. We had, 215 people in the first one and 200 in the second one. So you all are the last group to have this conversation. And after hearing 2 groups have this, I'm excited to hear what you all have to say. Because I don't know in our world in this moment that there are more important things for us to talk about. When you walked in, you were given a pen and a name tag and a couple note cards that we're going to use. So you got this first name written on your name tag, right? Often we wear a name tag, it tells one thing about us, but we don't often get to know people around us in any other kind of way. All that we know is the things that we assume about them or that they choose to tell us. So we're going to try to dig a little deeper today and figure some of those things out. Some things you do not know about me and that you cannot tell from looking at me is that I know, I already told you where I'm from. I know every president's middle name, and in the 3rd grade I had a pet skunk. His name was Pepe Le Pew. It's the only skunk name that I knew in the 3rd grade. And he came with me to show and tell. And no, he did not have, he couldn't spray people. There was no scent business going on. So they're like a little cat, little pet skunk. So that's the thing you didn't know about me. As we talk today, we're going to talk about the stuff going on in the world. If you have been paying attention to the news, what has sort of overtaken your news feed in the last week? What's happening in the world that you've been paying attention to? What's going on this week? What? Puerto Rico, what about it? There's a hurricane, and then there's all this question about, is help going? Who's sending it? Who's telling the truth about it? Yes, what else? So Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico and the islands, what else? Yes.
The Republican Party's fourth failed attempt to try to take healthcare away from people?
Yes, health care. It might be more than 4. It's a lot.
Oh, they tried a couple times, but this term.
Yeah, I was going to say, yeah, it might be more than that. Somebody else, what's happening in the news this week that you paid attention to? Yes.
They're moving along with repealing the Dear Colleague letter.
Yes. Title IX, sexual assault prevention on campuses, has been proposed by the Secretary of Education, Department of Education. Some loose guidelines, but nobody quite knows what it might be replaced with. What else have we been talking about in the world of sports?
The knee taking and refusing to go on the field.
Yes. So in the NFL, a protest that's been going on over a year started with one person, Colin Kaepernick, and then a few more people, and it added, and then the president gets involved, and suddenly every NFL team last week had some kind of response, some kind of statement for or against, and then it seemed like everyone in the world had some kind of an opinion about what patriotism was, when protest was okay and not okay, what form was okay and not okay, who could do it and who could not do it. I've not been paying attention to college football today. Normally on a Saturday morning, I'd be in my pajamas drinking coffee, watching College Game Day on a Saturday morning. That came from 20 years of living in Texas. So I don't know if college games today, if any teams took a knee. Does anybody know? Some high school teams did last night. Did anybody hear if a college team did today?
I know I've seen at football games that some players here are but that was before the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah, I was just curious. Like I hadn't paid attention today because I've been in this room since 8:15. So all of these things, we have got people who do not feel safe where they live. We have got people who don't feel comfortable talking about their political views on one side or the other. We have got policies that are being seen as not safe, detrimental, racist, sexist, whatever. And we've got a campus where we sent you a survey and you responded. We got over 200 responses where you all talked about what it was like on this very campus. Things you felt, things you've experienced, stuff that's gone on. And so in all of these pieces, we've been talking about, all right, we know this stuff's going on in the world, but what's going on here? How do people feel? So as we have this conversation today, we're going to ask you to talk to each other. There's some things that we need to kind of agree on as a group and talk through. This is our sort of covenant as a group today, is in this room as we have this conversation, as we talk about why this matters, here are some of the pieces. If we start with the assumption that everybody, as a student leader, as an exec member of your organization, cares about our campus, cares about our community, that everybody is working toward the common good, that gets us a long way down the road. We also have to agree that everyone has a leadership voice on campus, whether it's a position that you've got or whether by the influence that you have and the respect that other people give you, you are a leader. We also have to agree that we have a responsibility to each other. Do you, as leaders on campus, are you responsible for one another? Are you responsible for other students on this campus and their experience? We also need to agree that you are the community and the campus's greatest asset, greatest advocate. Several people in their survey, when we asked the question, what does the university do to help people feel welcomed and included? We got a couple of hundred really fantastic responses about programs and student organizations and offices and resources that have been allocated. And then 2 or 3 people said, you know what, it doesn't matter how much money is spent, how many staff people there are and offices and spaces, if the people who come here don't embrace it. It doesn't matter what we do if the students here don't take this on as their responsibility. So that's part of this, that you're their asset. We also have to agree that everybody belongs here, that you've got a place at the table, and your voice, whatever you say, has as much weight and validity as everybody else's. that you're valuable here, that you matter, that you have a place at the table. A lot of schools across the country don't want to have this conversation. When they come to orientation, they do a song and dance and say, this is the greatest place on earth and you're going to love coming to college here. And you all do that, but you also say, hey, we know we're not perfect. We're not there yet. We have some issues and some struggles and some challenges. One of the things that we teach people when they first get here is what the university values are. These are the things that the campus years ago came up and said, all right, this is what we value as the University of New Haven. By the way, it makes me angry that we can't say UNH anymore. Can we go fight those people in New Hampshire? I mean, I just feel like we could take them, right? I mean, I don't know why they think they own that. I just think we could push them down maybe. So here are the things: academic excellence, leadership, diversity, respect, accountability, dignity, responsibility, integrity, and contribution. This is what the powers that be a long time ago said. This is what matters to us. For the purpose of today, I will tell you, I don't give two hot turds about your academic excellence. It does not matter in this context. I don't care. I don't care what your grades are. I don't care what your major is. I don't care how well you're doing in school. I need us to agree in this room that these pieces are important. That if we're going to move in any kind of direction as a campus and as a community, that these are the things that we're going to value. I want you to value your academics, but for the purpose of today, it's leadership, it's diversity, it's dignity, it's accountability, it's respect, responsibility, integrity, contribution. The word that is not up here, we have the word diversity, but what word don't we have? We don't have the word inclusivity. And they're two different things. Diversity and inclusivity are not the same thing. So as we talk through this piece, as we kind of ask you all what it means to be a Charger, the first step in that is you all talking about how you are as a person. The most valuable thing that we can do is value each person's story and background and history and what you bring with you. So Andrew is going to go into the sound booth. We're going to do a little activity here. I don't want to scare you, but it's going to get dark in here. And I want you to, is anybody terrified of the dark? Do we need to? The exit lights stay on, so don't worry. Get out your phones if you have one. Turn on your flashlight if you have one. If you don't have a light on your phone, we, I think, we have some little bitty lights here that you can use. So raise your hand if you don't have a light on your phone and you need one. We have a light we will give you. Here we go. We also won't do this very long so your batteries won't die. Okay, does everyone have their lights on? Let's do a little practice here. If you hope we get out of here early, raise your light. Okay, that's pretty good. Okay, and down. So I'm going to read you a list of questions. And if the statement is true for you, you're going to hold your light up. If it's not true, you just keep it down. It's pretty simple. Because we were asking people to talk about themselves, to maybe be a little vulnerable, to share some information, there's some nice anonymity about being in the dark. There's something about saying, yeah, that's me, but not everybody can see my face. So I want you to actually look around and see the lights that go up and pay attention to that. What we're not going to do is make any kind of comment about the statements that we make. So if someone chooses to share, holds that light up, we don't want to make any kind of, don't laugh, don't make a comment about it. It's a quiet activity. So everybody got your phones ready? Lights on? Okay. Andrew, if we can have it dark. Okay. All right, phones down. If you are a sophomore, raise your light. Oh, if you're a junior. Seniors. Oh, nice. Grad students. If you were in the special category of fifth year super senior victory lap, Let's see that light. Thanks. If you are the oldest child in your family, raise your light. If you're the youngest, if you are a middle child, if you're an only child, raise your light if you are a twin. Raise your light if you're a triplet. Raise your light if you were adopted. Raise your light if your parents are married. Raise your light if your parents are divorced or separated. Raise your light if you were raised by a single parent. If you were raised by someone other than your biological parents. Raise your light if you have a parent who has died. Raise your light if you're the first person in your family to go to college. Raise your light if you have had a family member attend the University of New Haven. Raise your light if you've already changed your major at least once. Raise your light if you know you're going to change it this year. Raise your light if you have a tattoo. Raise your light if you have something pierced other than your ears. Raise your light if you have struggled with depression. Raise your light if you have a learning difference or disability. Raise your light if you have a financial situation that gives you lots of stress. Raise your light if you help financially support your family. Raise your light if you are a parent. Raise your light if you consider yourself politically moderate. Raise your light if you consider yourself politically liberal. Raise your light if you consider yourself politically conservative. Raise your light if you are a collegiate athlete. Raise your light if you are an artist or singer. Raise your light if you play an instrument. Raise your light if you speak 2 languages. Raise your light if you speak 3 languages, 4 languages, 5. Okay. Raise your light if you're terrified of spiders. Raise your light if you are more afraid of clowns. Raise your light if there's something about you that you are afraid to let other people know about. Raise your light if you have a person you can trust. Raise your light if you have a dream for your life that you know you will accomplish. Raise your light if you hope we stop doing this so it doesn't kill your phone battery. Okay, thanks. We can turn the lights back on. Andrew. Let's give Andrew a hand. Been here all day. Thank you. Thank you. Did anything about those answers surprise you? What made you go, oh, I wasn't expecting that? What question? Yes.
There was no sports people here.
I know. I was surprised about that too. What else? What made you go, oh, I didn't realize that? Yes. Yes. I mean, we got to, 4, 5. Yes, it was impressive. What else surprised you? Yes. Yeah, there were a lot of people who were legacies that had, you know, somewhere in their family come to school here. Sometimes when we do activities like this, there are moments where we go, oh, I didn't realize there were so many other people stressed out about money. I didn't realize there were so many other people dealing with depression. I didn't realize there were so many other people fill in the blank. We often feel isolated and alone in these moments because we often walk around without letting someone know who we actually are. And the heart of a lot of these issues is that we're not talking to each other. So one of the reasons that we're having this conversation is because of this statistic. When I said I wish I wasn't here, it's not because I don't want to be in the room with you all. It's because this statistic. Every year, more than 1 million college students are targets of bias-driven slurs or physical assaults. 1 million. Every year, every day, at least one hate crime occurs on a college campus. That means 365 days a year, on average, one happens. The Southern Poverty Law Center in Montgomery, Alabama, tracks hate crimes on college campuses, among lots of other things that they do. In the last calendar year, the last academic year, more than 365 events were reported. These are bias acts, hate crimes. Raise your hand if you know of an event on this campus that went on that was racist, sexist, xenophobic, homophobic. Raise your hand if you know of an event, an instance. That's a lot of hands. And were any of these reported? Probably not in the way that this tracks it. We know that hate crimes and bias acts, much like sexual assaults, are wildly underreported. The final one, every minute. So 60 minutes in an hour, 24 hours a day, on average, a college student somewhere sees or hears racist, sexist, homophobic, or otherwise biased words or images. That's why we're having this conversation. I'm going to ask my two lovely assistants to introduce themselves, and then they're going to help me do something. Come on up.
Hello, everyone. My name is Gia Roper. I am a junior studying psychology here at the university and I'm a resident assistant.
Hi everyone, my name is Matthew Chai. I'm a junior studying criminal justice and psychology. I'm a USGA senator and a wellness care educator.
And MK.
Hi, everybody. I was hiding there. I'm a senior and I am a USGA senator.
Thanks. What they're going to do, if you all will just pass those out. We need some volunteers. There's a little card here. Give me this long one. Thank you. Okay. They're going to, I'm wearing like 3 microphones. I don't know why I'm also talking into this one. Here, take this. We're going to ask you to read. These are about 12, 14 hate crimes that have happened on campuses that have been documented. They've been in the news. Some of them happened, well, you'll see when we read them. Some of them have been in the last year. Some of them were a couple months ago. What we're going to do is ask you to stand up. They're going to hand you a microphone, and I just want you to listen to these as you hear what has gone on. And think about, did you hear this story in the news? Okay? So give that microphone to whoever's closest to you. Oh, you're first.
I don't want to do it first.
Listen, all you got to do is read. Stand up. Well, I mean, not really, but I would like you to. You can do this. I believe in you.
On a campus in Virginia, several cars with Trump bumper stickers were vandalized with baseball bats. The words racist and homophobe were scratched into the vehicles.
Virginia. Somebody over here who's got the microphone.
This summer in Charlottesville, Virginia, hundreds of Nazis, white supremacists, and members of the KKK marched through the campus of the University of Virginia, carrying lit torches and shouting, "You
Somebody over here.
25 days ago, incoming University of Michigan Latin students and their families were taking part in a welcome event where they painted the rock, a tradition on campus for generations. Someone decided to send a different message to these incoming freshmen. They covered their message with white paint, the words, F Latinos and Make America Great Again.
During spring break at Panama City Beach, a woman was sexually assaulted by multiple men. Dozens of students were standing right there. Several of them videoed the rape on their phones. No one stepped in to help her. No one.
In California, Latino students were taunted with chants of "Build the Wall" as tortillas were thrown at them while they attended a multicultural celebration.
9 days ago, Georgetown students found a swastika and a message threatening violence against women painted on the wall of a bathroom during the start of the Jewish holiday Rosh Hashanah.
At a university in North Carolina, racist words were painted on the Free Expression wall, and someone spray painted the words "burn and die" across the entrance of the LGBTQ center.
Tuesday, 4 days ago, at least 10 flyers were found in 4 buildings on Georgetown's campus. The flyers showed a Confederate flag and the words "Huzzah for Dixie" and had what appeared to be cuttings from cotton plants attached to them.
At a college in Indiana, 23 members of a sorority are asked to leave the chapter. The only thing that they had in common was that someone decided they were too fat or too ugly.
At the University of Chicago, Illinois, a conversation political speech turned violent when protesters spit on, screamed, and harassed attendants of the event.
On campus in Wisconsin, 2 women were verbally assaulted and then punched in the face and called dykes because they were wearing marriage equality t-shirts.
This summer at a university in Washington, D.C., the heart of our nation, someone hung nooses on campus in an effort to intimidate and harass the school's first Black student body president.
This spring at a college in Texas, posters were found all over campus that read "Imagine a Muslim-free America" and "White man, are you sick of the Jews?"
Was that all of them? Oh yeah, read 2 then.
In Massachusetts, several women reported being raped and sexually assaulted at a Halloween party. The attackers said their slutty costumes meant they were asking for it.
I've also got 2. 11 days ago, 5 members of a Christian college football team in suburban Chicago faced felony charges in the hazing of another team member who alleges they duct taped his hands and feet and attempted to sodomize him with an object before dumping him half naked in an off-campus park. The student alleges his 5 teammates put him in the back seat of a car and with Middle Eastern music playing, made offensive comments about Muslims and told him that he was being kidnapped by Muslims who wanted to have sex with goats and that he would be their goat for the night. The final one is that at the United States Air Force Academy 36 hours ago, 5 African American students, cadets at the Air Force Academy, had the N-word scratched and spray painted onto their residence hall doors. The commandant, the leader of the Air Force Academy, immediately made a statement that said, if you don't believe in the dignity of all people, get out. If you can't immediately see why this is wrong and terrible and cannot be a part of our institution or our country, get out. If you cannot immediately stand up against this, get out. So these 15 things while we're having this conversation, these are a handful of the list of more than 365 that happened in the last year. That's why I say I wish I didn't have to be here. So hearing this list of things, what stood out to you? What's the one thing that made you go, ah? What incident or what happened? Yeah.
It's actually none of them because there was none about the campus of the University of Michigan where 12 hours ago, N-word was yelled
So on your campus, 12 hours ago, out a residence hall window to a person. Raise your hand if that surprises you. Raise your hand if it does not surprise you one bit. I used to have the response when because I've done this work a long time, I have colleagues at universities all over the country that email me incidents, things that have happened. Did you see this in the news? Did you see this happen? And my response used to be, what? How could that have happened? And now I'm with the group raising my hand going, I'm not surprised. I'm not shocked. So can I ask you a question?
Yes, ma'am.
Was it said to you?
It was not said to me. It was said to me. It was said to him.
I'm really sorry.
And
Like,
I'm the RA in that building. So it's cute.
in listening to the responses that universities typically give in these kind of incidents, I started doing this study about what people say and do. And it's you know, when these kind of things happen, when they're said, when they're done, I want to tell you there's a format that businesses and schools and everyone else uses in their official statement or apology. And it always starts with, I can't believe this happened, some form of shock or surprise, and then they detail what happened. And then the final statement is always, this isn't who we are as, and they list the school, whatever. So I started noticing these statements, and I collected them, and I had this whole file saved of these apology explanation statements. And they start with, I'm shocked, I'm appalled, I can't believe. And they end with, this isn't who we are. And my statement is, if you're shocked, you're not paying attention, and it's exactly who we are. It's not who we should be, but evidence is to the opposite. It is terribly who we are, because it happens too often. It is too frequent. It's too much pain. It's too much fear. It's excused too much. It is given too many chances to be repeated. And we'd be here all day and all night if we read every example. The fact that this happened 12 hours ago on this campus is awful, and we ought to be able to get to a point where it does shock us, where it's so unexpected that we can't believe it happened here, because it's actually not who we are. People who aren't surprised by this, it's because they've seen it over and over and over again. If you have never spent a half an hour reading Martin Luther King Jr.'s letter from Birmingham jail, that's what you need to spend a half an hour doing this afternoon. It'll be the best 30 minutes you spend all day, including the time in this room. This is one sentence from this landmark letter that he wrote. Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere. We're caught in an inescapable network of mutuality, tied in a single garment of destiny. Whatever affects one person directly affects us all indirectly. Whatever is shouted from a residence hall window to one person is shouted to all of us. This is how we ought to begin to respond. In looking at your surveys and listening and paying attention to the answers that you gave, there were so many good things talked about the progress that's being made and the people that are available and the ways in which people interact. But then there were also a ton of examples like you just said and you just experienced. So here's the next thing you're going to read. Let's pass those out. So in this survey, we asked you to give specific examples of when you had not felt safe, or you had seen or heard something happen, go on. And people replied with either nothing, I've never experienced this, this has never happened to me here, I don't know of an example, or they gave a very personal account of something that happened. It had to do with people's race, ethnicity, sexual orientation, nationality, socioeconomic level, you name it. People have felt like they did not belong. We got a bunch of these. Let's just read the ones that we've kind of, handed out and are good. Go ahead, read yours. You've already got a microphone.
3 years ago, a dying peaceful protest was held and participants were kicked for laying on the floor.
So let's be clear. All of these examples were written by people in this room or from the last 2 sessions. All of these examples were experienced by people on exec of a student organization. Who's got the other microphone over here? Go ahead, yeah. We'll just go back and forth like we did before.
I hear so many fat jokes and insulting comments. It breaks me every time.
Sometimes I feel like I cannot express fake opinions or anything that may seem Republican or even remotely in that area during class. I don't even necessarily agree with any of that party's ideologies, but any indication from other members in my class resulted in other students freaking out.
I was recently at an event with majority Caucasian race, and I was half American, or I was half African American.
Well, one of 2. Yeah, it says one of 2.
Okay.
It's
2
African
Americans there. I had an encounter where a Caucasian male automatically assumed I was friends with the other African American in the room because we had the same skin color. I had no idea who the African American guy was.
There are times I hesitate to kiss my girlfriend goodbye in public because there have been students and faculty that look at us like we are doing something wrong.
As a Latina, I've had my opinions be told that they're invalid, especially when talking about immigration or other political debates.
Our school tries so hard to be politically correct that we can get in trouble for anything. I'm scared to say the wrong thing on campus and get my club or organization in trouble.
I felt I can't enjoy certain programs or events on this campus because I don't have the financial means to do so. I have to work all of the time.
I'm not comfortable with expressing my political view in the fear of being excluded or unfairly judged.
It's difficult to come out as bisexual when your family doesn't believe in bisexuality.
People have made me very uncomfortable regarding my sexuality and economic status.
I've always been afraid of disclosing a disability I have in fear of not being taken seriously or people making jokes about. It's not something that can be easily seen, but it really is disheartening to hear people joke about people with disabilities.
Being a female in the engineering program here at the University of New Haven, I have definitely witnessed firsthand gender discrimination from peers. I'm also a conservative living on a liberal campus, so sometimes I feel unintentionally discriminated against politically.
There have been times at events when I've been turned away or excluded because I stated that I was Hispanic and commented something in favor of the immigrant community.
I felt unsafe because of my gender on this campus. I've been called the N-word by Caucasian students. I've been told many times I can't wear something because I'm too white. I have Republican views, and I sometimes feel I can't actually say what I believe or why, since I've been attacked verbally for my views while being a student here. There were a couple hundred of these. They just went on and on. I'm a white male, and society doesn't want to hear my opinion because I have white privilege. So we talk about what makes a campus welcoming and inclusive and safe, and then we end up with you all in leadership positions having this kind of experience. So hearing not the examples of things that happened on other campuses, but things that have happened here, how do you feel about your university and your community in this moment? How do you feel about how we're doing in terms of creating a welcoming, inclusive campus? Yes?
I mean, it makes me kind of angry. I'm a tour guide
Somebody else, yes?
I think the school itself is doing like a good job of, being inclusive to everybody, but the students themselves just kind of reflect the way the country and the world is. So.
Yeah, campus is a microcosm of what's going on in every community in the country. You're right, yes.
I was actually just having a conversation about this. This campus is very big on diversity, and that's cool. When it comes to inclusion, yeah, we might have varying groups on campus, but no one intermingles. Like, each group stays within each other. Each organization, sorority, fraternity, all these different organizations stay within each other, and no one intermingles whatsoever. And if they do intermingle, they intermingle with groups within their same category, depending on what it is. So if it's a fraternity, if it's a Greek organization, they all stay with each other. And if it's a multicultural organization, they all stay with each other. Everybody just clumps together. So we might have these different groups and organizations, but no one goes outside of who they are.
Do you all agree with this statement? This was echoed in the previous two statements with two packed rooms. This is what people were saying. This is where we start talking about the difference in being diverse and being inclusive. So even in the survey, lots of comments about, we're so diverse, we have all this diversity, we have lots of groups, we have lots of organizations. Let's talk about the definitions of these two words because they are not interchangeable. They are not the same thing. Being diverse means you have a wide spectrum of difference on the same campus, if we're talking about a college. It means you have people from multiple backgrounds, socioeconomic levels. You have people from various races, ethnicities, different parts of the world, different parts of the country, different political perspectives. You've got people from different faith groups, different everything, ability levels, and they are all together on this campus. That's what a diverse campus looks like. It's not homogeneous. It's people from every walk of life, area, major, field of study, whatever. That's what diversity looks like. And so often schools will say, we're really working on our diversity, and they mean numbers of people in categories that we can say, yes, we have brought all these people together, but putting everyone on the same campus does not make everyone inclusive. It's like, okay, the campus is this one big corral, everybody's in on it. That's diverse. It's a diverse campus. Inclusive means you're glad everybody's there. And you celebrate the differences and you willingly learn about them. And there is intentionality to the way that you interact with people. There is intersectionality with different groups. There is purposeful, intentional getting to know people. There's celebration of differences. Inclusive means being welcoming of the differences, knowing about them, learning about them. So often people use those words interchangeable and they're not. So you think you have a diverse campus? Raise your hand. If you think the campus is not diverse, raise your hand. Yeah, we got some people answering both. If you think the campus is inclusive, raise your hand. If you think it is not inclusive, raise your hand. If you're not sure, raise your hand. Sometimes it depends on who you are, who you're you may have an inclusive group that you're a part of, and that feels that way. But if you step outside that, it may feel very unwelcoming. It may feel unsafe even. And one person's perspective on the same campus, in the same major, in the same residence hall might be very different. We had multiple comments like this on the survey. Lots of things where people said, we don't have a problem with diversity. Everyone is welcomed. Everyone is included. There is no discrimination. Then we had lots of comments like this. I don't feel safe for being myself. I don't feel welcomed. And then all of those examples that you all just read off about specific ways that people did not feel safe. So how can these two people be students at the same school? How is that possible? It's because the world that you live in inside your campus may be very different than the world that somebody else lives in. So the problem is we want to, get past that. I want to tell you a story about when I was a college freshman. And I went to Vanderbilt for my undergrad, and we had a required service learning component that we had to do as part of our graduation requirements. And it was this long, 4-year, 500-hour, big to-do. So my freshman year, I started tutoring at a youth prison. I would go once a week at 6 o'clock in the morning to this women's youth prison. And my role that freshman year was to help these two 16-year-old girls learn how to read. I don't know if I taught them how to read. I don't know that I was very good at it. But that was where I went every Tuesday morning at 6 o'clock. One week in, October, November, it was getting kind of cool. I'm driving back to campus. And the only way to get back to campus from the place I was coming was the interstate exit that then takes you to campus. You sit at this red light for a long time. You sit, the light's red, and if you're the first car always at this stoplight where you're waiting to turn left, there on the guardrail, there's always a homeless person. Always. You know the intersections here where there's always somebody asking for money or in your hometown. And you've seen the signs. This was that sign. Pretty basic. Homeless, hungry, will you help? This is what the sign said. For whatever reason, on that day, I caught the light. I was the first car. And if you're the first car, there's no space. If you roll your window down, you can tap the person's sign. It's right there. So on this particular day, I'm the first car. I know it's going to be a 14-minute wait. There's this sign right here, and I look over, and for whatever reason, I'm surprised that the person standing there was a woman. I was a freshman in college. I grew up in a little bitty town in North Carolina, and I had this perception that homeless people were men and had beards and, camouflage jackets and bedrolls and backpacks, and this woman did not look like that at all. And so I see this sign, and I'm thinking, crap. It actually says you, and it's underlined and bolded. She's actually asking me if I will help, and I was feeling pretty arrogant about I'm doing good in the world. I am teaching 16-year-old people in prison how to read. I can also help this woman. But I said I grew up in a small town. There are these little old women in the small town that I grew up in, and anytime anybody went off to a city, they would, give you good advice. Don't get in the cars with strangers, don't give out your social security number, don't become a hooker, whatever, their good advice was. They also would say, do not give money to people begging on the street, because what will they buy with it? We all know the same old women. You've all heard the story, they're gonna buy drugs, they're gonna buy drugs. Pearl and Blanche were the two women that I am particularly thinking about. Those are actually their names. So they said to me, I'm hearing their voice in my head, do not give her money, she's gonna buy drugs, she's gonna buy drugs. And they actually probably whispered it and said the drugs. She's gonna buy the drugs. You know these people, they also say the Walmarts. So I knew not to give her money because she was gonna buy the drugs. So across the street, but it said she was hungry and would I help? It said you, it was underlined, it was right at my face. Across the street's a McDonald's. So I think, I'm not giving you drug money, I'm getting you McMuffins. So I go into the McDonald's, I walk in, I buy all of the Egg McMuffins. It was at least 12, it might have been 18, I have no idea. I don't know how I thought she was gonna eat all of these either. And I get 2 cups of coffee and I come back across the street and I look at her and say really eloquently, McMuffin. Whatever I said to her was not good. I did not make a good first impression, but she was kind and she said, yes, thank you. I would like an Egg McMuffin. Would you like to sit down? So I did. I sat down on this guardrail and I talked to her, and this is what she told me. This is what I learned about her. She was 42 years old. Her name was Lydia. She had a 9-year-old daughter, and they lived in her car. They'd only been on the street about 8 or 9 months. Her life prior to that looked like this. She had a bachelor's degree in business. She had an MBA. She had had a job and a husband and a house. and health insurance. And then, you know, life happened and she got really sick. And she lost her job, which means she lost her health insurance. Her jackass husband left her. It's the only word I can think of to describe him. She used a lot more colorful language. He left her. The house got foreclosed on. And like happens to many people, she found herself without help and without options, and she was sleeping in her car with her daughter. She got her daughter to school every day, and she spent a couple hours in the morning trying to get some spare change, extra money, before all of the agencies opened up and she could go apply for help. So on this morning, she's sitting on the guardrail, she's holding her sign up, I'm the first car. I go by all the Egg McMuffins, and I walk across the street, and I learn this about her. And as she's eating her Egg McMuffins and we're talking, she says to me, Carrie, do you want to know what I've learned in the 8 or 9 months that I've been here? Like, do you want to know what I have figured out about people? And I'm like, yes. Because at this point, I'm realizing I don't know anything about anything. And as she talks to me, she says, all right, Carrie, there are 3 groups of people in the world. Every single person fits into one of these 3 categories. Pay attention, because you are also going to fit into one of these 3 categories, because I certainly did. Category number 1. Now she sits here, hundreds of cars go by. And she said, I've learned that in these cars you can tell what category people fall into. The first group is pretty small, thankfully. These are the people who, when they pull up and they see her and they see the sign, they do things like spit at you, curse at you, throw a drink out the window, proposition her sexually, ask her to get off the street, she's ruining their city, call her every foul name in the book. It's a pretty small group, but it happens. And I thought, I am not in group number 1. Then I'm feeling pretty good about myself. I'm like, oh, I'm teaching people how to read, I'm distributing the Egg McMuffins. I am definitely not in group number 1. Group number 2, she said, is also pretty small. These are the people who, when they see me, they pull up to the stoplight, they see the sign, they do something kind. A smile, a bottle of water, some spare change, a hello, a look in the eye, a tip about a job, anything that is kind and notices that I'm a person. That's group number 2. And in my mind, I'm thinking, or brings you 40 Egg McMuffins, because that's what I did. I'm clearly in group number 2. Again, I'm feeling really good about myself. And then she says, so that's like, 10% people are nasty, 10% are pretty openly kind, she goes. Then that leaves group number 3. It's like 80% of the people. And she says, group number 3 are the radio station changers. And then she takes a big bite of her Egg McMuffin, and I think, I don't know what you're talking about. And as she's eating her Egg McMuffin, I realize pretty quickly, oh, I'm not in group number 2. This one moment I was in group number 2 where I brought you the Egg McMuffins, I am every other moment in group number 3. Because when I pull my car up, and that sign is right there, I immediately look this direction and change the radio station. Or you look at your phone, or you get something out of your bag that's in the seat over here, or you flick last night's French fry out beside the parking brake. Whatever it is, anything to look this way and not this way at this sign and the person who's holding it. And I knew in that moment I was in group number 3, because my day was easier and better and less complicated if I looked this way and not this way. I knew that I had had a brief moment of being in group number 2, but I was not. I had squarely planted my feet in group number 3 of choosing to not see the pain that was in front of me. I knew that I was in group number 3. And she talked some more about some other things, and I don't even remember what some of those were, except I remember that she said, it's not as if I only want people to give money or food or whatever. She said, what we all as people want more than anything is to be known. It's to be seen and heard and have our story known. And it's to be loved for who we are. That's what we're all seeking. Significance, belonging, for someone to know our truth and to accept us for it. And as she sat there and kept talking, I realized after like 30 or 45 minutes that not only am I sitting there, I've been holding her sign. So the hundreds of cars have gone by, have seen me holding a sign that says, "Homeless hungry, will you help?" beside this woman eating all of the Egg McMuffins. And I realized no car spit or threw anything or cursed me out. Also, no one looked at us. Like, I began watching every car that went by. And I realized she was right and that we were invisible. And in that very moment, we looked the same. Gray hooded sweatshirt, blue jeans, tennis shoes. The only difference in that moment was that I, through a scholarship, was getting a dorm room paid for down the street, and she had a master's degree and was way more educated and employable than I was. If I'd had to take care of myself in that moment, I could not have done it. And you know what? Neither of us deserved the things that had happened to either one of us. We didn't do anything to earn or deserve either one of those two things. It was just the way that life was. In that moment, people saw us as the same, and that was invisible and not worth anyone's time. The last thing she asked me was, "Hey, Carrie, you're in college. Who are you going to be?" And so I start rattling off my resume of, I'm studying this, and I'm going to do this in grad school, and this is what I'm going to do. And she just interrupted me and said, no, not what are you going to do, but who are you going to be? And I didn't have a good answer. I did not have a really good, all right, this is what I'm going to do with my life kind of answer. But I realized that this is the most important question you're going to answer in your life. Who is it that you are going to be? Every interaction that you have with another person puts good into the world or it puts evil into the world. There are no neutral interactions. Whether it's a real conversation you have with a person that you know well, or it's the person that you're handing your money to at Taco Bell, you are in some way giving a message about your level of respect for them as a person, how valuable you think they are. Everything we do sends some kind of message. Only you can answer this question about who you're going to be. And it's a question we ought to be asking ourselves day in and day out. So here's where you all are going to talk to each other. In order to get to this place where we stop labeling people and seeing people as invisible, we have to do these 4 things. Step 1 is self-reflection. For me, that started with, oh crap, who am I going to be? What am I going to do in this world with my life? The second is dialogue. Too often in conversations, we're not even really listening to what the other person is saying. We're just quietly waiting for a break in their talk so we can then show them that they're wrong and we're right. We're not hearing what they're saying. We're not listening to understand. We're listening so we can respond and win. That's what conversations have become. So dialogue is about listening to actually understand the other person's perspective. Step 3 is responding. Once you've looked at yourself, once you've listened to other people, then what are you going to do? As a leader, as an organization, that's step 3 is responding. And sometimes we have to do step 1, and then step 2, and then step 1 again, and then step 2, and then step 1 again, and then step 2, and then step 3, and then step 1 again, until we can get to some form of healing. So when we ask this question, who will you be? The other side of that is, on your campus as a leader, what are you choosing not to see? What is this direction at this sign that you think, oh, my day would be easier if I didn't look at that? If I didn't think about the students who were going through whatever struggle, if I didn't notice the problems, the issues, what are you choosing not to see? The other thing is, what are you ignoring? How are you going to respond? Are there people whose experiences you just don't understand because you haven't walked in their skin, you haven't lived their life? These are all questions we have to begin asking before we can figure out who we're going to be. The challenges we face in this is that we live in an echo chamber, right? We surround ourselves with people who agree with us. We follow people on social media that we agree with, and we argue with people that we don't. We often don't watch or listen to news reports or read articles of the opposing view because they just make us mad. And we know they're wrong and we're right, so we don't read them. So we only read things that already affirm the things that we know. And it doesn't get us anywhere toward affirming and listening and understanding what other people's perspectives are. We also see this as a win-loss, zero-sum game. We've gotten to the place where you win and I lose, or I win and you lose. And with humanity, with human beings, it cannot be a zero-sum game. It can be okay for me to be right and you to be right, for my truth to be true and your truth to also be true. We're in a spot where the typical answer to things is, you know what, let's just agree to disagree, right? All saying agree to disagree really means is, just shut up, I don't want to talk about this anymore. We're not really agreeing to disagree, we're just saying, oh, shut up. I do not want to talk about this. So we have to do more than agree to disagree. We have to get past this a little bit. So this is the self-reflection. Examine your perspectives. Acknowledge that we all have privileges in some areas and we all have blind spots. Things that we don't even know that we have a privilege of. Things that we don't even see someone else's struggle or fear or challenge that they're facing. Every day we ought to be learning something new about someone else's understanding and perspective of the world. There is no finish line in this journey of beginning to learn and figure out how to treat people with dignity and respect. So we already talked about this. Dialogue ought to be listening in order to understand the other person. It should not be just a waiting game for them to take a break for you to jump in and voice what you think is your much more important opinion. As we get to the point of responding, it's okay to realize we can both be right. That there can be more than one correct, right way to do things. If you keep as paramount the dignity and respect of the other person, it becomes less important than you crushing their stance or opinion on something. The person ought to be more important than the issue. So here's where we're going to start talking to each other. You have a note card, you have a pen. Take a few minutes, and I want you to list every identity that you claim for yourself. Everybody's list will be different, look different, and then I want you to kind of turn in the groups of people around you and kind of talk about them. So like my list would start with, I'm a woman, I'm cisgendered, I'm Southern, I'm a political addict, I am an orphan, I'm heterosexual, I'm a sister, I'm a writer, like whatever my list is, skunk owner, may he rest in peace, Pepe Le Pew. Make your list, okay? All of the things that you identify with, what identities do you claim for yourself? You got like 2 minutes. And then start talking to each other. And then we'll do microphones. Start making your list. We've got some friends in the aisles with a microphone. Who's brave enough to read us your list and tell us who you are? It can be, yep, here we go. First one right there. And as people read these, you might go, oh, I didn't think about that. Yeah, go ahead.
Just go down the list?
Sure, yes.
Okay. So I am a white woman. I am cisgender. I am politically independent, physically disabled, Catholic, the oldest sibling, an RA, a tour guide, a daughter, and heterosexual.
Thanks. All right. Who else wants to read theirs? Thank you. I like the enthusiasm with which you volunteered as well. I mean, it's like almost 4 o'clock on a Saturday. We got to take all the energy we can get.
I'm black. I'm cisgender. I'm a lady. I'm straight, and I don't have a voice.
Thanks. Okay.
I'm a white cis woman. I'm queer. I'm liberal.
Thanks.
I'm a white cis woman. I'm queer. I'm a leftist. I'm vegan, and I love cats.
Nice.
I'm cis white straight male, musician, brother, son, nephew, dyslexic, and locally independent.
Nice. Somebody over here. Yeah. There we go.
Female, heterosexual, student, survivor, only child, sister, friend, leader, Catholic.
Nice. Oh, down here. Here we go. Oh, you go, and then we'll bring the microphone down here.
Cis, straight, white male, musician, punk, and politically progressive.
All right, down here.
I am a Jamaican woman. I am also a writer. I love dogs and babies. I am a hospitality addict / comedian. I am bisexual. I'm a cartoon lover, and I'm on school.
Nice. Somebody else from this side over here. We had a whole row go over here. Super impressive.
I'm a woman, a middle child, a daughter of one of 8, a sister, a girlfriend, a waitress, an aunt, a cousin, a Latina, an organizer, a meat freak, a Christian, a singer, and an amazing listener.
Nice. Oh, here we go right here.
I'm a Latina, non-binary, pansexual, an artist, an activist, a student, and a caretaker.
Nice. Who else wants to go? Oh, in the back. Oh, to your right, to your right. Up, up, up. You're doing great. Okay. Oh, yeah, yeah, go ahead, right here.
I am cisgender, southern, woman, bisexual, agnostic, Native American, politically moderate / left, only child, and dyscalculic.
I'm a white, masculine, non-binary, bisexual, Irish American.
Wait, what was the last thing you said? Oh, nice. Awesome. Oh, yeah, let's come over here.
I'm white, female, straight, dyslexic, singer, and a healthy child.
Nice. All right, up here.
I'm a woman, I'm cisgender, conservative, redneck, military significant other, and an army brat, an artist, white, a mass hole, and an ADHD, dyslexic, only child.
Thanks. Nice. Anybody else? Oh, yeah, you go ahead, then we'll pass it down, okay?
Well, I'm half white, half black, woman, I'm cisgender, I'm from New York. I love cats, I'm addicted to piercings and tattoos, I'm pansexual, I consider myself politically moderate, I'm agnostic, I'm a fighter, and I'm somewhere between being youngest and middle child.
Nice. Thanks. All right, yeah, down right there, okay.
I am a black woman. I am a sister, friend, niece, daughter, granddaughter. Straight, Methodist, dancer, cheerleader, asthmatic, New Yorker, RA. I'm a girlfriend and I'm on sex.
Nice. Anybody else? Going once? Going twice? Oh, Andrew, at the back.
I'm a white, cis, male, queer, able-bodied, agnostic, progressive, brother, professional, middle class, advanced degree, educated, New England, dog lover.
There it is. Nice. Anybody else? Going once, going twice. This can be hard. It can feel soul-bearing to list off things that are true for you. Raise your hand if there was something you either wanted to write down or didn't write down, but you were nervous because you thought, oh, I don't know if I want to share this or write it down. Raise your hand if you had one of those, an identity that you were like, oh, I don't know. Why is that? Why are there things on our list that are truth for us that we don't feel comfortable sharing? I'm asking this side. Yes.
It helps us grow as a person, but we know that it's sometimes a touchy subject and we don't want to impose it on people because their reactions, previous reactions we have gotten when sharing that information, or just knowing that it is an uncomfortable topic to bring up.
Sure.
We don't want to write it down, share it, because it's personal.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes.
So for me personally, I wrote survivor, and that's like a sexual assault, so people may see you as a victim first instead of a survivor, so it's just a different perspective on things.
Absolutely. Yes.
Sometimes like some of the things you go through, they're just hard, you know, it's just you don't want to relive those memories. You just kind of want to block it off.
Absolutely. Somebody else, why are they difficult? Yes.
Well, for me, something like with mental health is like a lot of times people fail to acknowledge when you actually have a problem. They like to say, well, you know, you're going through a hard time, but like that doesn't mean that something's actually wrong. So you just get so used to people discounting your problems that you don't even want to talk about it.
Absolutely. Somebody else, what makes some of these things difficult to share? Yes.
Sometimes I feel like it's hard to admit it to myself, like even like in terms of like sexuality and things like that. Like I kind of thought I was just like one out of like many people that didn't really understand. Like I felt like everybody had it figured out, like what they were doing. So it's just something like that.
Yeah, sometimes they're hard to admit to ourselves first. Sometimes we don't want to talk about some of our truths and identities because of reactions we've gotten from other people. You know, there's been a previous, you know what happened when you shared them. Sometimes it's because they're personal and it's just not anybody else's business and we want to keep it. Sometimes it's because we've got pain around it. Sometimes it's because we know that other people will make assumptions about us if they know this piece of us. Sometimes it's that self-preservation. And the truth of the matter is the society that we live in is that some identities are more powerful, accepted, valued than others. And there are some things that are easy to say because they're on this list up here and nobody's going to bat an eye at them. They're in the majority. They are safe. They are identities that people are like, oh, of course you're that. We're all that. We're not all anything, first of all. And then there are other identities that people look on with scorn or shame or fear or misunderstanding. They don't even know what it's about. And so if sometimes we're like, oh, I got some of these, oh, and I got some of the, how do we decide what is safe to share and safe to talk about? And so in our attempt, all of us, we know that we're all complex people. If we really have done this internal reflection piece, we know we're all complex. We know that we all have these layers. We know that we've got mess and tragedy all going on in our lives with the beauty and the joy and the excitement and the congratulatory good. We all have all this stuff kind of mixed up. Yet, we pretend that we don't. And we want everybody else to just see what we present to them. The only happy people I know are the people who are striving to be themselves, to be truly comfortable in their own skin and embrace who they actually are, not who someone else expects them to be. The difficulty is we often, too often, walk around slapping labels on other people, deciding their truth for them when it's not something that they said or did, but we're deciding, oh, you must be this, you must be that. Oh, I see your hair, your car, your background, your bank account, your skin color, who you pray to or not pray to, the way you look, what you wrote on your body or poked a hole in, and we decide things about people. So for your next question, you don't even need to write this down. I just want you to think about it and talk to the people around you. What is an issue, an identity, a moment where people have mislabeled you? They've made an assumption about you that's not true for you. They decided something about you based on not anything you told them or shared with them, but maybe it's about the way that you look or sound or who you love or what kind of group you're a part of or where you came from. What is an assumption that people have made about you that's not true? What's something that people just slapped a label on you, assumed something about you? Talk with the people beside you for a second, and then we're going to share those too. Anybody that wants to. All right, let's hear some of these. Where are my microphone people? Okay, can we just briefly, can we give a hand to these three who have been here since 8:30 this morning, running around, doing the microphone, talking. You all have been awesome. What is an assumption someone has made about you? Go.
All right, I don't like to say my nationality because I'm Jamaican, and people always just go, their first reaction every time I've said is, oh, so you have weed? Like, do you smoke weed? You got some weed on you? So now Jamaicans smoke weed, have weed.
Yeah, the whole island is one big marijuana leaf.
Like, where are your dreads?
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. Somebody else over here. What's an assumption people have made about you? Here we go.
So a lot of people think that I come from money because I went to a Catholic school for high school. I have a brand new car, and I studied abroad this summer and spent that money. But meanwhile, I've been working since I was 14, 15 years old, and I have a lot of credit card debt. So.
But people make an assumption. Yep. Somebody else who's got the microphone. Yes.
A lot of people, if I'm with someone who stereotypically looks male, they're like, oh, that's a straight couple. And if I'm with someone who stereotypically looks female, it's like, oh, that's a gay couple. Where there's things in between that.
Yeah. But they decide a whole thing based on a glimpse. Yeah. Somebody else. What's an assumption people have made about you that's not true? Somebody in the middle. Here we go. I'm looking at you people next, right here.
I'm from New York, and people kind of assume that I'm kind of mean and just very fast-paced, but that's not how I am.
Yep. All right, right here. Somebody right here. In the back. And do you have the microphone back there? I saw your hand. Who's got the mic? Oh, there we go. Okay, we'll do you, then we'll pass it back. I see you. It's on.
So people assume I'm kind of hot-headed and quick to get mad just because I'm Latina, and that's
Yeah. All right, over here.
People think that I want to become like lecture me about my face piercings for some reason. I don't.
You don't? You don't? Oh, that's good to know. Thanks. All right. Yeah, pass it back. There we go. Who's got the microphone? There we go. Right over here.
People like to say that I'm not Southern because they don't sound Southern. I grew up Southern Baptist. I'm very Southern.
That might be as Southern as it gets. Over here.
People often like, cause I'm openly gay, so people like, you're not gay, you don't act gay. How can you be gay? I don't know, I didn't know there was like a, you have to act a certain way.
Yeah.
Like, I could be gay, act the way I act. So that's another misconception that people often have. People really don't believe they can't fool.
Don't you love when other people try to tell you your truth? You know, when someone else tries to go, no, that's not who you are. No, you can't be that. You don't know me. There is something really powerful about giving people space to be who they are in whatever framework that looks like. Whatever our assumption about a word or an affinity or whatever that is, that's just your perception. It doesn't have to be someone else's truth. Who's got the mic? There we go.
People often assume that I am from, well, in my town, people often think that I'm like an Oreo. They call me an Oreo because I articulate a certain way, and I live in the suburbs rather than living in the inner city, and it's not my fault that my mom got a good check. I can't do anything about that.
Yeah.
And they usually call it talking white.
Mm.
And I don't talk white. I just speak. That's about it.
Yeah.
Okay, that's.
Pass that microphone right behind you. There we go. Somebody over here. What you got? What's an assumption people have made about you? Still looking at you, middle section. There we go. Okay, there it is. I knew I could, laser stare somebody into answering this. And then we'll come over here.
One thing, when I was in 8th grade, I was in class and this one girl, like they were putting nasty comments on the board because it was like free time or whatever. The teacher wasn't paying attention. So one girl wrote Natalie's a lesbian on the board, and it did hurt me because it's not that I have anything against that, it's just I don't like people assuming things that aren't true. And I asked her why would she do that, and she said basically because I look weird and because I don't have a boyfriend like any other stereotypical 8th grader in that time. So it was like, that's none of your business, and it doesn't matter whether I'm in a relationship or not. That doesn't assume that I'm lesbian or if I'm straight.
Yeah, it's not your truth. Yeah. All right, back here.
Well, when I was younger, I got a lot of I wasn't black enough to call myself black because one of the palest people I know. But also whenever I wear my hair like it is now, people would be like, well, now you're just trying to be something you're not. Or I would get a lot of people telling me that it's just it's unkept. But really, I spend a lot of time in my hair. You can ask the people I live with, and it's bad. But so just people assuming because I'm somewhere in between that I don't really fit into either category.
Your friends over here, your pale friends want the. I think they were challenging you're the most pale person they know.
As the Irish person, you're not the palest. Everyone assumes because I have short hair I'm a lesbian. I think men are crazy, so no.
When I came to college was the first time that I felt comfortable talking or telling anyone about how I feel about not being the gender that I was born as. So.
That's powerful. I think there is so much empowerment in allowing people the space and the moment to be who they are. It is hurtful to people's future and psyche and self and understanding when we try to make someone be something that they aren't. You all are leaders in student organizations. You're on the exec board. So the last thing that we will leave you with as you walk out the door is, how do you take this conversation about getting to know people and groups on a level that is different than what we assume about them? Because let's talk for real. Every organization probably has some kind of stereotype, right? Like if there's a group and you're not in it and somebody goes, hey, what's whatever group like, immediately something pops into your head, right? Whether you're in it or not, ever been to a meeting or not, you assume, oh, they do this, or they're like that, or their events are like this, or those people do whatever, fill in the blank. To build a community, to move from being diverse to being inclusive, welcoming, celebratory, integrated, intersectional, that's a one-on-one conversation. That is a you taking a step forward outside of your known comfort area and getting to know another person. You're not going to like everybody. It's not about that. It's about seeking to understand the perspective of another person. It's about standing up for the right of another person to be their own truth and to be who they are. It's about speaking up as a leader in your organization. If your organization is doing anything that is marginalizing or creating unsafe spaces for any other student or human being, that's our job as people. That's our job as human beings. It's our responsibility to one another to not just say, ooh, that's awful, but I don't want to get involved. We can no longer have that safe space. In one of the survey questions, we asked, what topics do we need to talk about more in terms of diversity and inclusivity? And people listed a ton. And then there were quite a few people who said, we talk too much about this. And there were people in every room today that said, oh, I just am tired of talk. I just don't want to talk about it. And part of that is the argument, oh, if we would stop talking about racism, it would go away. You know you've heard this statement. There's just no truth in it. It's laziness, it's privilege. If you feel like, oh, that's just too hard, I'm just going to turn it off, I don't want to engage, I don't talk about it, look at yourself. You are probably in a safe enough space that you don't have to deal with it. Your livelihood, your family, your safety, your identity, the people you love are probably not being challenged. If you are safe in all those areas, you can turn it off and walk away. And a lot of people do. A lot of people choose to walk the other direction because that cardboard sign that says, will you help, is too hard to stare at. So what are you going to look at? What are you going to choose to ignore? The last quote we will look at, did you read the book Night in college, high school, something? Elie Wiesel, Nazi concentration camp survivor, wrote, I swore never to be silent whenever and wherever human beings endure suffering and humiliation. We must always take sides. Always. Neutrality helps the oppressor, never the oppressed. Silence encourages the tormentor, never the tormented. So I'll ask you the question that Lydia asked me, who are you going to be? What are you going to do on this campus? It's an individual question that only you can answer, but you can use your influence and your power within this sphere of your student organization, within your friendships, with your roommates, with your relationships. Be the one to call it out. Be the one to say, we're better than this, I'm not doing it, we're not doing it. That's when things are going wrong. When things are going right, seek out a person, take the step into their life, and ask them, tell me more about this. I want to know about this. The questions that we ask are important. The life that you live is important. Your presence here is valuable. All the things that you bring to this, that entire list of identities that you bring, matters to the community here. And that's got to be true for everybody. I am grateful for the things that you've shared today, your honesty, your truthfulness, your vulnerability. It is not easy to have this conversation. It's certainly not easy to do on a Saturday afternoon. So I'm grateful to you and the 400 people who came before you. UNH, I'm going to keep calling that, screw those New Hampshire people. Thank you. This is a special place. It's a work in progress, and that's a beautiful thing to be a part of. Places that think they've already arrived will never grow one step further. So be involved in that. Take part in it. Be active. Let your voice be heard. As you leave this place, continue the conversations. Go out and enjoy your Saturday afternoon. And thank you for being here. You're free to go.